Thank you, Jack, and welcome to all of you. I want to say at the outset, express our thanks again to the Albert Shanker Institute, to the National Endowment for Democracy, and to the 21st Century International Ladies Garment Workers Union Foundation for their generous support of our organizing this meeting, and thank the management as well of this Institute for Cuban and Cuban American Studies for the use of this splendid room. Our meeting today is designed to explore the full range of political and economic developments in Cuba as the government moves to improve its reputation abroad through the recent prisoner releases, and as it attempts to rescue its socialist economy in the same way so many capitalists do, by firing the workers. Only in Cuba, the government doesn't announce the firing of 500,000 people, but has that announcement made by its puppet union, the CTC. Those plans have been stalled now for 6 months, so we await next month's Communist Party Congress to see what new ideas might be revealed to revive the economy and the hunger and relieve the hunger that haunts the Cuban people. Every trade unionist in this room or in the world will recognize the irony and the absurdity of having a so-called union announce its firing of 500,000 to 1 million of its members and say that those 500,000 or 1 million will be free to employ themselves in what is already a staggeringly depressed economy. The good news in this past week was the strong statement by President Obama in his speech in Santiago, Chile last week, when he said, "Just as we defend democracy and human rights within our borders, let's recommit to defending those rights across our hemisphere." Democracy is about more than majority rule. Simply holding power does not give a leader the right to suppress the rights of others. Leaders must maintain their power through consent, not coercion. He went on to say, "Let's never waver in our support for the right of people to determine their own future, and that includes the people of Cuba." Going forward, he said, "We'll continue to seek ways to increase the independence of the Cuban people, who are entitled to the same freedom and liberty as everyone else in this hemisphere. At the same time, Cuban authorities must take meaningful actions to respect the basic rights of the Cuban people, not because the U.S. insists on it, but because the people of Cuba deserve it." So spake our president, and we thank him for the comments. Finally, let me bring to your attention the greetings we have received from Paul Howes, the National Secretary of the Australian Workers Union, Australia's oldest and largest industrial union. Paul writes, he thanks us for the invitation, notes that he's not able to attend our conference, but he says, "I wanted to send you and all involved with organizing the conference our best wishes for the success of the conference and my thanks for your work in bringing the conference together. The recent uprisings against the dictatorships in North Africa and the Middle East is a powerful reminder of what can be achieved when workers, unions, and civil society organizations join together to fight for freedom, liberty, and democracy. I know that it's only a matter of time before the spirit of freedom, which is spreading across the Middle East, makes its way to Cuba. I remain in constant admiration of the brave men and women in Cuba who stand against the Castro regime, which has imprisoned their island for all too long. As always, I remain available to assist in any way I can to provide assistance to the free and independent unions in Cuba, fighting for the rights that we who live in democracies take for granted." Paul Howes is also the author of the letter that you may have seen on your way in, a letter written to the Cuban ambassador in Australia. The Cuban ambassador asked Howes for a meeting to discuss the situation in Cuba, and Howes responded that he would be happy to meet with him when the last prisoner is freed. It's a splendid letter, and I call to your attention. Finally, let me just note as you can see, we have a rather full program of 3 outstanding panels and press conference, lunch, and an international teleconference with the recently released Cuban prisoners now exiled in Spain. To maintain our format, the principal discussion and dialogue will take place at the table. Our panel chairman will introduce the panelists and will try to allow time for audience comments or questions at the end of the panel presentations. Our translators will be doing simultaneous translation, but everyone speaking should be mindful of the need to speak at a decent pace and not swamp the translators with rapid-fire commentary. That said, let me also offer a word of welcome to our trade union friends from the Miami area who have joined us, the International Longshoremen's Association, representatives of the Office and Professional Employees Union, representatives of the Plasterers Union of the United States, and the American Federation of Teachers, and the United Teachers of Dade. We're delighted to have all of you here with us. Thank you.